So today I'm with Mark Anastasi, New York Times bestselling author of Laptop Millionaire. He is somebody who is amazing in terms of his network, his ability to overcome amazing obstacles, and also has developed a way to train people to create best-selling books, entrepreneurial businesses, and has an awesome book I recommend you all check out. I'll put details in the video description below. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Nick.
Cool. Well, I'd love for you to talk to us about your entrepreneurial hero's journey, about what you did, and talk a little bit about how you became known as the Laptop Millionaire.
Well, I guess it all started back in 2004 when I'd been fired from my job. I was working in telesales, and I came across this little videotape, an ad for a videotape about welcome to freedom. You can learn about wealth creation. And so I sent away my 15 pounds. I was living in London at the time. I sent in my little check to receive this videotape, and I received it one morning at 8 a.m. I remember it was a Saturday. I put it into the VCR, and I watched it over and over again, probably about 8 or 9 times, till nightfall. This guy's presentation talking about how you can attend a seminar, you can learn about wealth creation, you can learn about marketing, you can transform your life. And it just blew my mind because I'd never come across the idea of hey, you can have your own business, you can build wealth in a specific way. And that was the starting point of getting me to think about the possibility of attending a wealth creation seminar, transforming my life. But I still didn't do anything at the time. Fast forward a few months later, where I got fired from my job in telesales. And a month after that, I got kicked out of my apartment because I hadn't paid the rent in a few months. I was in a lot of debt. And I ended up squatting in an abandoned building in London for about 5 months with about 20 homeless people. And that was my life around 2004. And eventually one day I came across I was on a mailing list, and I heard about this event that was taking place in London for a seminar. Like I said, because I ordered that videotape, I was on a mailing list for these kinds of things. And I decided, okay, I'm going to put together from these 8 credit cards that I have. I was homeless in London, surviving thanks to credit cards. It was the weird go-go days of the early 2000s where everybody was getting credit cards sent to them through the mail. And anyway, I put together the 300 pounds. I booked a ticket for this event. And the people around me were thinking, okay, Mark, you're crazy. Why are you going to an event like this? It's a scam. It'll never work. They're just after your money. And I thought, you know what? That's what I've felt my whole life. That's what I thought so far. It hasn't made me happy or successful or wealthy to think this way, like all of you broke people here in this homeless kind of place. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the exact opposite than what I've been doing so far because it hasn't worked out for me so far. So I attended that event, and I mean I was the first guy there from like 8 a.m. in the morning till late at night. I mean I had nothing else to do. So I really took in every little bit, every ounce of information that they were sharing. And one of the key things that they shared during this event is that your invisible world creates your visible world. If you have limiting beliefs about yourself, if you have limiting beliefs about money, about success, about business, then you're not going to succeed. You're going to sabotage yourself in some way, on some level. And so I got back to that place where I was staying, and I just grabbed some paper and a pen. I grabbed my journal essentially, and I started writing in there. I started doing the exercises that they recommended during the event. I started writing down, for example, the worst thing about money is dot dot dot, and I completed that sentence. I can't make a lot of money because dot dot dot, and whatever your subconscious puts as the end to that sentence, that's what you write down. In the area of money, I feel sad because, or I feel angry because, I feel afraid because, I feel guilty because, I feel ashamed because. Basically, you write down, you figure out what is your relationship to money. You also write down about how were your parents in the year of money. To cut a long story short, I found out that I had 44 major limiting beliefs about money. And I had a whole range of other limiting beliefs about myself as well. And over the next 3 days, I worked on eliminating each and every one of those limiting beliefs. I used specific neuro-linguistic programming techniques that we learned during that event to eliminate those beliefs. And then I started doing exercises to reprogram my mindset. I wrote down 100 reasons why I must make more money, why I must make, at the time it was £2,000 a month. Then I wrote down 100 ways how I could make £2,000 a month. I wrote down what problems people have and what solutions people buy, what things do people buy, because money is nothing but the measure of the value you create for other people. So you want to make 10 times more money, you've got to figure out how to deliver 10 times or 100 times more value. And how do you deliver value? By finding out what problems people have and providing solutions. All of this was very different to my upbringing in Greece. My father was a journalist. We grew up in Greece. I'm actually French, but I grew up in Greece. It's a little bit complicated. And but my father had a terrible belief system about money and successful people. His belief system in Greece was the only way to get rich is to bribe the Greek government. But we are good people. That is why we have no money. And my mother's French, and her belief about money was if you have the money, you must spend the money, because if you do not spend your money, someone will come and take your money from you. So they never had any money, right? Between the two of them, they had terrible beliefs about money. I show up at this event and a seminar in London years later, and they say, no, money is nothing but the measure of the value you create for other people. A very different mindset. And they said, listen, you've got to sell products rather than your time, because if you sell your time is limited, so your income is limited. If you sell products, there's no limit to how many products you can sell, so your income becomes uncapped, it becomes unlimited. So between those two ideas and your invisible world creates your visible world idea, those were three major, big, life-changing aha moments for me, you can imagine. And I'd met somebody there who was selling an ebook online, an ebook about bronchitis. And at the time I was thinking, okay, this guy makes money, maybe he can give me a job. My mindset was still stuck on, I need a job. I need to get out of being homeless. I need to be able to pay off my debt and all of that. And a few days later, I do these exercises. My mindset is different. My mindset is now thinking about opportunities and ways to deliver value and how can I use more leverage and sell more products. And I think back to this guy, Francis, who sat next to me at that seminar, who was selling the ebooks online. I call him up. I go to a payphone, I call him up and say, Francis, I'll work for you for free if you share with me how you make money online. And he was very kind. He said, you don't have to work for me for free. That's fine. You just need to do these 4 simple steps. Find out what people want, create the product that solves that problem, create the website to sell that product, and then drive traffic to it. Cut to 28 days later, I'm making $10,000 a month thanks to my first ebook online. Cut to a year later, I'm making $460,000 a year in passive income from 30 or 31 ebooks online. I set up a seminar business to teach people personal development principles about how I changed my mindset. I was homeless. I worked on my mindset intensively, for 3-4 days, just working on my belief system. And so I did these mindset type of seminars, and then people kept asking me about how do I make money online. So I started this seminar company doing internet marketing bootcamp. So we went from having 80 people at our events to suddenly I had 1,000 people at my mental game of money seminar, 800 people at our internet millionaires bootcamp, 700 people at our millionaire bootcamp for women events. And I built my mailing list. We did 1.2 million pounds in our first year with seminars, with live seminars. And so it ramped up pretty quickly. And people kept saying, how did this young 24-year-old guy, 25-year-old guy get thousands of people showing up at these events with almost no marketing? And I did this, by the way, with almost no marketing budget. I was just using guerrilla marketing techniques and like JVs and getting the speakers to promote the events to their own networks and mailing lists in order to have a speaking slot. And anyway, basically using everything I could use in terms of guerrilla marketing, essentially, to fill these events. And that was great. We did about $8 million in sales from these events. Then I studied about I wanted to publish a book. And my idea was I wanted it to become a New York Times bestseller. I wanted it to be published in many different languages. I wanted to share the best information from our events in an easy to consume format, and a book would fit the bill. It could get translated, it could be distributed easily. Not everybody could travel all the way to London for our events, so it was a great way to get this information, these teachings, these messages out there. And I got myself a mentor. Just like I had a mentor for my ebooks publishing business or for my seminar company, I got a mentor for my for publishing a book and making it be a New York Times bestseller. And because this guy explained to me, listen, if you're going to publish a book, you might as well do it big. You might as well do it like the big guys, like the professionals. Get it on the New York Times bestseller list. You gotta sell 11,000 copies in a single week. And there's a way to do this, but you got to be prepared to put in a lot of promotion, a lot of marketing to make it happen. And they explained to me there's about 12 incredible benefits to you if you get your book on the New York Times bestseller list. For starters, if you follow this formula, you'll do probably $1 to $2 million in sales on the back end. And for example, they showed like Brendan Burchard, he got his book on the New York Times bestseller list. He did $2 million in 12 months. And Tim Ferriss and Jack Canfield, all these guys were doing the same thing, pretty much. And so I followed the formula. I said, okay, I'll do exactly what my mentor told me. This has worked for me in the past. We got the book to be number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. And we did $1.7 million in 12 weeks by doing a Laptop Millionaire world tour. We basically did 12 cities around the world and got a couple of hundred people in each event.
That's great.
And it was pretty cool. And I mean, that's a little bit about my entrepreneur's journey. And lately, I've set up a new company, a publishing company. The model that we're following is pretty exciting because so many authors need help with their books. They need help with getting published or to build a business, to build the back end with their using the book as the foundation for their brand. And the company that we're modeling that's been doing this very successfully for a number of years, they went from 0 to $30 million in revenue in 14 months. And so anyway, so we're looking to emulate that and maybe even surpass it in due course. So that's a little bit about some of the things that I've done over the last few years, Nick.
Yeah, I also think it's amazing that you were able to do all this in such a short period of time and also go through a situation where you were in Cyprus, where the financial crisis that took all your money, and you were able to survive something like that. Because going through a challenge like that allows you to build character. I think that's really great.
Well, I'm glad you see it that way. This happened in 2014, and indeed, everything that I built up to in a decade of work, decade of serving, we have like 40,000 clients in 116 countries, etc. Overnight, the Cypriot government took the money out of 5,000 bank accounts with no justification, only that they needed the money to keep the Cypriot banking system afloat. And now people think, oh well, this is Cyprus, a small island country. It couldn't happen here. It's actually scary that it could happen. It could even happen in America. It could happen in New Zealand. It could happen in many advanced countries around the world. And yeah, about building character. Sure, I'd like to think that it built character. It was definitely something that required me to be very resourceful at the time, but I wouldn't wish it on any business. To suddenly have all your funding dry up, we had to let go of a lot of staff. We had to start a lot of things from scratch again.
We went through a similar situation, but I guess I want to sum up the interview because I know that you have a meeting that we kind of just pushed. So I want to ask one question, because one of the things that everyone always asks me, and you actually had the opportunity to actually do this, is if you had to start all over again, what would you tell your old self what to do? And you didn't have, you actually had to do that. You had to build your company again from the ground up, from scratch. So what were those learning lessons that you took, having built a multi-million-dollar business and having to start all over again and rebuild that business that allowed you to rebuild it stronger, faster, and better?
The number one lesson is, and what I would say to myself is, Mark, for the love of God, put systems in place from the get-go. Because I was very much promote first, and then we'll sort out systems and procedures and what have you. But that definitely would have helped us immensely get on our feet again faster if we had better systems in place. But also, let's say this: what happened in 2014 in Cyprus, and we had to scale back a bit before growing again. It was a real kick in the teeth at the time, but it was a real impetus also to take things to the next level. Like, I really admire the fact that you guys do over 10 million a year, for example, that you have an 8-figure-a-year business. That to me is incredible, because 7 figures, it's a walk in the park. It's easy. But to go from 7 figures to 8 figures, that is my next challenge. And that's what I'm realizing. It requires an entirely different mindset. Like, the mindset of a 6-figure-a-year entrepreneur is completely different than the mindset of a 7-figure-a-year entrepreneur to that of an 8-figure-a-year entrepreneur. Not to mention that of a 9-figure-a-year entrepreneur. It's a very different worldview and belief system. And just like I had limiting beliefs that I had to overcome before, there's limiting beliefs that I have now about getting to an 8-figure-a-year business. That things around letting go, trusting teams, trusting, for example, getting COOs involved, getting sales teams involved, things of that nature. So that's the next step in my evolution. And my advice would be, get systems in place for every single process in your company.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely have a Rolodex kind of like you of people in all those categories, 7, 8, 9, even 10-figure entrepreneurs, and just seeing the differences in the mindsets and understanding them has been very valuable. I'm trying to share that. I am sharing that on my YouTube with people from each of those different categories, just interviewing people from each of those different categories and sharing what their mindsets are.
That would be interesting to see. What's always driven me forward is the desire to help people, the desire to add value. And I see that to me is a common element I've noticed in many successful entrepreneurs. But maybe when you talk to 8-figure, 9-figure, 10-figure a year business owners, maybe their mindset is different. I don't know. I know, for example, Tony Say, that's a friend of yours, and you get to hang out with quite a bit. He has a multi-billion-dollar business, or a billion-dollar business, and I know that that's a big part of his ethos.
Definitely. Well, Mark, thanks a lot. I'm not going to keep your other meeting holding any longer, sure. But I really enjoyed talking today, sharing ideas, and great catching up with you.
Great. Same here, Nick. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Cheers.
Take care.